The little Terrier tank engines of the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway were very well travelled, having been rehomed by several different places throughout their long careers. One in particular now proudly puffs up a steep demonstration line in Norfolk, but the story of how it got there, and the people that saved it, are not who you might expect. Celebrating their 150th birthday in 2025, and still going strong, here is the complete history of Terrier 62 Martello. Martello's origins mirror that of many other terriers, with Stepney in particular. Both were built in the big third batch, with Martello entering service on the 27th of October 1875. Named after the London district near Hackney, Martello was based at New Cross Gate to work the manic East Croydon to London Bridge line. By the turn of the century, designer William Stroudley had introduced stronger engines, and the Terrier began running the Wimbledon branch instead, becoming number 662 in 1901. Unlike some of its siblings, Martello stayed with the LBSCR at West Croydon, with the company's initials replacing the name on the tanks in May 1909. With the dawn of the new Marsh Umber. Douglas Marsh also rebuilt the design in December 1913 to become an A1X. And the little engine retreated to a more slow-paced life at Littlehampton, with a shed by the sea. Over the First World War, Martello stayed at Tunbridge Wells, before in 1920 making its way to Fratton. As the Southern Railway took over 3 years later, the number was adjusted to become B662 and the company's new green painted on. In 1931, this was changed again to number 2662. All the while, Martello had settled into a lifestyle on a branch line that became synonymous with the Terriers. Over the bridge to Hayling Island. Being economical with fuel, strong yet light enough to cross the wooden viaduct, Martello fit right at home on Hayling Island, right into British Railways ownership, who overhauled the engine in September 1949. This included a full lined black repaint, and the lengthened number once again to 32662. One curiosity is the bunker, which was extended to hold more coal. A modification that was unique to the Terriers sent to the Isle of Wight. Martello never did, but when under repair in 1961, the old bunker from number 77 Monash was fitted, which had been scrapped the previous year. Just like with Stepney, from here the engine was sent to wherever it was needed on the south coast, including to Lancing, New Haven, St Leonard's, Eastleigh and Brighton. By this time, the Brighton Terriers were the oldest working design still running around on the main line, and that made them very popular with chartered rail tours, including one along the Lyme Regis branch, double-heading with the Adams Radial now preserved at the Bluebell Railway. On the 11th of June 1961, The Locomotive Club of Great Britain chose Martello and Poplar, or Bodiam, to top and tail the last train over the closing Kent and East Sussex Railway. Storming up the gradients with 7 coaches between them, this spectacle was recreated to mark 50 years on in 2011. However, by the 2nd of November 1963, Stepney had already been preserved by the Bluebell Railway for over 3 years, whilst several other Terriers were still at work on the main line, approaching 90 years of service. Adorned with a wreath, Martello worked some of the last trains on Hayling Island, before being retired and withdrawn at Eastleigh Works, having run an impressive 1.5 million miles. Instead of being sent for scrap, the engine was surprisingly rewarded with a well-deserved holiday. Billy Butlin had put on his red coat and opened several holiday parks across the United Kingdom. Ever the entrepreneur, he realised that a nice, operation-free attraction could be having steam engines that children could pretend to drive. He had already bought giant machines like LMS Princess Royals, Duchesses and Royal Scots, so a little Terrier was a walk in the park. At Eastleigh, Martello was fully restored in its original improved engine green colours, and on the 2nd of September 1964 was loaded onto a goods train, Scotland bound. By the 19th of October, it finally arrived at Butlins holiday camp in Ayr, to be displayed behind the mighty Duchess of Sutherland. The plan had been to pose the engines in the centre of the camp, but the low loader carrying the Duchess couldn't handle the steep hills or the weak bridges. Instead, the two were put by the entrance, right next to the road. For many years, this seemed to be their fate, with visitors able to climb into the cab and enjoy the miniature railway that also ran around the site. Most photos make poor little Martello barely able to be seen behind the huge express engine, even though it was the oldest of the 8 locos owned by Butlins. By 1971, railway groups were getting concerned that the sea air would deteriorate the locos. Since they were ultimately bought as a cheap display piece, Butlins weren't too keen to fully restore them. So, both Martello and Duchess of Sutherland were moved on loan to Norfolk, to a garden nursery of all places. Alan Bloom, MBE, was a notable horticulturist, with perhaps the most appropriate surname, having developed perennials and alpine plants on his land at Bressingham Hall. He was also fascinated by steam, so in 1961 began purchasing retired steamrollers and traction engines. This craze naturally continued to the rails too, and he soon had standard, narrow, and miniature gauges built on the estate. Even broad gauge, opening to the public as Bressingham Steam Museum in 1968. For its centenary in 1975, Martello was restored and steamed again, being officially bought by Bressingham in 1992, with 3 other ex-Butlins engines. It has had overhauls again in 2005 and 2016, going from Marsh Umber to British Railways Black, now to Southern Olive Green. For such a short line, Martello is easily more suited for demonstration trains compared to the likes of Royal Scots or Duchess of Sutherland, both of which have been restored to run on the main line. Martello has also ventured elsewhere, including the North Norfolk Railway, Bluebell, Great Central, Severn Valley, and many more. Even at home though, it makes an impressive sight on the quarter-mile long line. With a truck and a brake van, the track ascends a 1 in 38 climb up to the station, giving a clear example of that iconic Terrier bark. The old engine has become a visitor favourite at the gardens, and over the years, Hornby have produced several models of it. This in turn made Martello end up in a video game of all things. Evidently, one of the developers working on Assassin's Creed Syndicate in 2015 used an image of Hornby's Martello as reference. Concept art exists of what is clearly an edited 00 gauge model. Specifically, it's number 2662 that was used, with other artwork mashing it together with E4 Birch Grove. It is a heavily modified Martello that crashes and burns within a cutscene in the game. Thankfully, that is not something that's happened to the real thing. In 2025, Martello is currently the only working standard gauge engine at Bressingham, but far from the only steam-powered machine. The Waveney Valley Railway runs parallel to the end of the standard gauge line, which means, if it's timed right, both big and small trains can race side by side. There's few other places that allow you to see up close across two moving trains from the height of the wheels. These two lines are just half of the railways at Bressingham, as there is also the narrow gauge Fen Railway, run by Welsh Quarry Hunslets. The 10¼ inch gauge railway winds itself through some of the gardens. A transport shed houses the many road vehicles. Whereas a separate building displays some stationary engines. This is alongside a rich collection of mobile engines that are currently stationary, including LSWR B4 Granville, Beckton Gasworks number 25, the Great Eastern Railway Buckjumper, LT and SR Class 79 Thundersley, and even the UK's last standard gauge Garrett. A different transportation treasure trove building holds an exhibit to Dad's Army, and various vehicles used in the production of that. There's miniature engines, steam launches, restored carriages, model railways, and an endless list of fascinating other items at Bressingham. Ooh, that really deserve their own guide rail. Today, we're celebrating Martello, who during our visit was having a big 150th birthday event, and on this occasion played Happy Birthday from the 1897 Fairground Galloper just for their oldest resident. Considering the tiny running shed and workshop space available here, the team of volunteers do well to keep Victorian locomotives like this still running. Being on a private estate, they sometimes offer footplate rides. From a humble start barking around the suburban lines of London, running holiday goers to the seasides of the south coast, to being plinth at a Scottish holiday park, ending up at a steam and garden museum, is the least bit surprising for an engine's history like Martello's. The locomotive is fast approaching time for its next overhaul, so do see Bressingham Steam and Gardens website to visit and support them in person. They can be found near this in Norfolk, which is in this in Norfolk. I'm very happy to have seen Martello during its 150th year, as that marks 9 out of the 10 surviving Terriers that I've seen in person. One more to go, but it might be a bit more difficult to see the last one. If you'd like to help me one day fly out to see Wadden, do subscribe to the channel, leave a like or a comment, all of those things, and follow the link in the description to become a patron for a truckload of exclusive rewards. Happy 150th Martello, and I'll see you all next month for a new guide rail, exploring the world's steam-powered history. A big thank you to the following channel patrons: Alex Goodman, GBH Train, D0280 Falcon, Sean Tempest, Random Thomas Fan, Dark White 73, Andrew Dyack, Reese Lee Walter, Ryan RTS, Ewan Pentland, Steam Power 4472, Jude 72, Firewind 10, Luneacres Photography, Mario Sonic 64, Elias, Soda Fox Art, TJOC 9891, Tamsy, and Insane Edward.